Today, we're going to talk about a very important technology and skill that you need in your transition to become an AI and data specialist. Some of you might have heard about it, some of you might not have, but it's very important that you understand this skill and technology. So, we're talking about Git and GitHub. These are two separate entities. And you need to understand the difference. So the goal of this session or the topics we are going to cover it is one, why is it important that you know about Git and GitHub? Two, when you should use it. Okay, it's not all about just knowing it, but when you should apply this technology. And also we'll cover some of the concepts you need to know, so the basic concepts you need to know about Git and GitHub. And I will also show you an example on how to build a technical portfolio using Git and GitHub. So that will definitely means I will put on my technical hub and show you how normally you are supposed to use this technology. So this is the lineup of things we'll cover today. And just to make you to understand, the reason why I'm covering this is because this week I released an article on how to build work experience from home. So if you haven't grabbed a copy or you haven't gone through this, it is very important you head on to my website and read this, because it is important. If you learn the skills and you don't apply them, then it will be difficult for an employer to actually confirm that you can apply those skills and technologies you claim you have written on your CV. So here's the article. I will definitely put the link in the video description for you to go read the whole article. Now, so let's move back to the topic for today, which is Git and GitHub. Now, before I dive into explaining things, I also want to say, what I'm about to tell you, if your goal is to become very technical in the field, then you would definitely need to get hands-on with this technology. Maybe your role would just be, let's say, an AI project manager. You need to understand this, because when you're talking to the technical folks, when they're talking about this technology, you also need to flow with them, right? That is why nowadays, even let's say you want to become a scrum master in an AI and data team, you need to understand these technicalities. It's not about just talking about your scrum framework or whatever you're talking about, but you need to be part of the discussion. And this is why it is important to learn these technologies. Now, let's take this scenario. Let's say you know how to program. That's just the assumption, right? You know how to program in, let's say, Python or R or anything, or you just want to work on the simple document with a colleague. So let's say you have colleague one. Okay, colleague one is in location X, and colleague two is in location Y. So obviously you guys are not in the same location. You are not in the same room. You could be, so one of you could be in let's say in the US, another one could be in Africa, or you guys can be in the same country but not in the same town or city or state. That is a scenario. And you guys are working on the same project. You want to work on the same project. So you're at your home or at the office with your laptop, okay? And hopefully you're connected to the internet and you guys want to collaborate. So imagine this scenario. Let's say you start with a simple document. Let's say I have the document. So this is a document, right? Let's say this is a document. So if you are the guy in location X and you have the document, you update certain things on that document and you want to share with your colleague in location Y. One way of doing it, or conventionally, you can think of, why not just send an email? So you email the document to your colleague in location Y, because you're hoping that your colleague should maybe revise, give you feedback. So your colleague in location Y now receives your email with the attached document and decides to make some changes. While that colleague is making some changes, you were also making some changes. Now you realize that these are now two different versions of the document, right? So maybe your colleague now sends back this document. It comes back to you with updates, and by the time it comes back to you, you already have some updates. So you see that this synchronization process is not smooth, right? So this is not the right way of working, and ideally you shouldn't even be thinking of transferring documents using email if you're expecting live updates. If you want to share updates with someone such that as soon as you're working, they should be able to see the updates, or maybe when they give you feedback, you should receive the updates live. So this is not a good way of working. You might already be thinking of the solution. For those of you that have watched my tutorials about cloud technology, then I think you already know the solution, right? Cloud technology. If you haven't, I'm going to also provide you the link to the cloud technology where I explain to you how normally you should be able to do this using cloud technology. These are things that you need to know. You can't run away from them. And the reason why I'm taking my time to explain is because I don't want you to jump into technologies without knowing why you're doing the technology or why you're using the technology. I want you to be able to understand the concepts. So now, with this scenario, obviously, if you have watched that video, you should be thinking of something in the cloud, right? So rather than having this document in your local on your laptop, you should have this document in the cloud. So this document, so you create the document in the cloud in such a way that as you're making changes, your colleague on the other side of the town or city or whatsoever can receive the changes live. Okay, that is the goal. So when you have this in the cloud, then there's live. So when I do a change and my colleague can get the live updates, then it makes our life easy. We can collaborate easily and work with this, right? So that is the concept. But now we are now talking about maybe AI and data projects, not only documents, but ideally the same thing. And the Git and GitHub technology uses the same idea, the same concept, where we could be able to work on the project together. We might not be in the same location. We can still be in the same room, but we still need to share to work on the project, right? So the Git and GitHub, so normally the GitHub, it's a cloud technology, okay? And so in the cloud, instead of calling the cloud, it is called the GitHub. And there are other guys there, so don't think that it's only this only GitHub that has this technology, but GitHub is the most common one. So GitHub is the platform where you go and you can create projects and you can collaborate with others. So GitHub is a platform in the cloud. Platform is a cloud platform where you go and you create projects, you can collaborate on projects with others. Now, just having technically, you can just have GitHub and you guys do your stuff on GitHub, right? But we're talking about you also being able to work locally and instantaneously you share your live updates with someone across the city. For you to be able to do that, there must be another technology that has been installed on your laptop, and that is a Git. So for us to be able to work on the same project, GitHub platform, then ideally we should have installed Git on our laptop. So Git is a technology, is a software package that you install on your laptop, and GitHub is the platform where everything happens. So these guys, the GitHub, the company, they owns the platform, and they help to like save or manage your document such that whenever you sign in, you should be able to have them. Your business is not to know how the GitHub thing works. Just know that if you want to collaborate on a project, then you need to have a GitHub platform where you can synchronize information between team members. So this happens for everyone, right? So I've explained for the scenario of two. You can definitely think of three, four, even thousands of people can work on the project together. So here's the scenario, and this is what is happening in companies. So for companies, like the software developers, or maybe you're a data analyst or you're data scientist, if you're working on a project with someone, then you need to have this technology installed so that you guys can collaborate effectively. I think somehow I've already explained why it's important. It's important because you need to collaborate. It is important because maybe you want to document. Now, this must not only be when you want to work with someone, it can be for your personal project. Let's say you want to work on a personal project, and rather than having it on your laptop, again, in my recent article, I explained that the last phase of doing personal project is for you to publish somewhere. And for me, I will recommend going to GitHub because it's a platform where when someone thinks of a technical project, they will think of GitHub. So even you're working alone, you should be thinking of using GitHub to publish your technical projects. And also GitHub is a platform where you could go learn. There are a lot of projects online. Let's say you want to start a project, someone has written a code already, rather than starting from scratch, just go to GitHub, search for projects around that similar topic. Then you can already have codes of people, and so you can kick off from there. So that is why GitHub is important. I've already explained why it is important for collaboration, when you should use it, because you want to collaborate with someone and maybe you want to also publish your personal project. Now let's cover some concepts, very important concepts you need to know about Git and GitHub. Somehow I've already explained certain things. So the Git aspect of it is a technology that you must install on your laptop, and the GitHub platform, you go online. The GitHub platform is free. To create an account, you go online, search for GitHub, create an account with your email, and that is it. Now, let's understand some basic concepts about Git and GitHub. So when you go online, right, on GitHub platform, you create an account, though definitely it is free, like I mentioned already. I'm going to provide the link in the video description if you have difficulties finding it. You create an account. The next thing you're thinking of, you want to start working on the project. And to start working on the project, you must create what is called repositories. Repositories. Let's just say create a repository, right? So a repository is just, let's say, an envelope. If you want to do a project, you want all your things to be found in a bucket. So it's just a bucket. It's a space in like in GitHub, in your personal account, where you're working on something, on a project. So rather than saying I'm creating a project on GitHub, you can actually create a project on GitHub, but that bucket, that space where you keep all your codes, all documents together, it's a repository. So when you create that repository online, normally it comes with, by default, it creates a main branch. So before I even let me talk about branches. Now, so this is what happens when you create a project. That's the nice thing about GitHub, because it is also, maybe I didn't really mention this, it is a versioning system as well. So for GitHub, you can keep several versions. And maybe I go back to this. Let's say today I've created the document, it is at version 1. I do update version 2. It will automatically create these versions for you. Same my colleague does, and that is called version 3. So we can definitely go back in time and get version 1, get version 2, and version 3. So with the presence of Git installed on your local machine, you are able to create versions of the document. Naturally, if you're using, let's say, most cloud technologies like if you have Microsoft 365, I think you have the one from Google as well. These guys already create versions of your document, which you can definitely go back in time and get those versions. So that's one thing you need to know. Now, so when you create a repository and you start working, obviously it creates just a single branch. So what are branches? Now, let me explain this using this line. Okay, so when I create this is my main branch. It creates one branch. Now, this main branch actually holds the final code. So when, let's say, if you want to share your code, the final codes of your project with someone, definitely you want to ask them to go to your main branch and get the final code. So when you start a document, let's say this is my document here, document 1. This document can be anything here. It can be your Python code or whatever. Yeah. Now, you guys are working, you're in a team and you're working, right? And you want in such a way that you have divided the work, you've splitted the work with your colleagues. And the fact that you're splitted the work, you guys don't want to all work on the same location at the same time. It might cause some confusion. So you say the fact that you're going to work on part 1 of the document, I will work on part 2 of the document, then this is what happens. So what you do is you branch off. So you create a branch. So maybe I create a branch called branch X because I'm working on part 1. My colleague will also create another branch called branch Y. Now, when you create the branch, so what happens? It creates a version of the document. the current version. So maybe it was version 1. So we all have version 1. As soon as you create a branch, it takes the current version of the main branch. You can get complicated and create another branch from your own branch. That's your, just understand that that's a possibility. But let's use a simple example. Now, so you have created the branch. We all have the same version. My colleague and I, we all have the same version. But since I'm working on part 1, I do changes. So I do changes. When I'm doing changes, and my colleague is also doing changes, so my colleague is working on the second part, I'm working on the first part. We keep saving the changes. So this can be on my local machine as well, and my colleague can also have it on their local machine. So now maybe I also do this. This is me here as X, my colleague is here as Y. Now, remember, whatsoever is happening online, this it's happening on GitHub. Indirectly, it's also happening local. So this is you local, same way it is local, right? So on my machine, I've said I want to create a branch. As soon as I create branch X on my machine too, I'm able to see that I will be able to see the main branch and also my branch X. Same here, main branch and branch Y. It is possible for me to see what my colleague is doing. So I can also see all the branches online. So I can also see what my colleague is doing, branch Y. Then my colleague can see what I'm doing, branch X. Now, this is the nice thing about GitHub. The thing about maybe like if you're using a Word document on Microsoft, as you do changes, you don't, except you pause the synchronization process. Anytime you do any changes, it is automatic. So whoever is using the same document will get live updates. But GitHub is a little bit different. It's not automatic. You have to really give the request that, okay, yes, I'm ready for my colleagues to see the changes. Now that I have my local branches, we all have our local branches. We're all working. We have created the branches. So we all see the same thing, right? Now I'm going to do some changes. So what I'm going to do, I've done some changes here and I save it. So my document now becomes version 2. And maybe, yeah, my colleague is also working and he or she has done some changes, is now version 2. But note, on the main branch is still having version 1. The main branch has not seen any changes from our local machines. So we have now done the changes. So when I do my changes, I'm going to send it. So I'm working locally. Take note, I do the changes local. Then I send the change to my branch. That process of sending the change to my branch, you do what is called a push. Okay, you say, okay, I'm now ready for my changes to be online. I'm going to pass a command that my current version that is on my laptop, I want it to be on my branch online as well. So you push the changes online. Same thing, my colleague that is working offline or local can decide that, okay, the changes that I have, I'm ready to push. I'm ready that everyone in the company or the team can see it. Then my colleague is also going to push. You can do that push several times. So I can push, then I work again. Maybe day 1, that was what happened at day 1. Okay, this is day 1 as well. Then maybe day 2, I do more changes. So my branch keeps changing. So day 2, I do another change and I push it to my branch. So this becomes version 3, right? I do more changes and this becomes version 3. Now, but before you even push online, there are certain things you need to maybe do offline as well. I'm probably going to show you that when I'm doing a demonstration, but you can do stuff like you save. So when you're doing changes on your local machine, right, you have changes. Normally you click on save like any other saving on your laptop, but you need to give commands to ask Git. So remember, before you are able to do this, you have Git installed. I've already explained this. You need to give commands such as commit. So you commit the changes. When you commit the changes, then you can now push the changes. So when you commit, it creates a version. So commit actually saves and creates a version of it. Then when you push locally, it now creates the version online. So that is something I'm going to also show you when I'm doing the practical part of it. Now, so day 2, I've created another version, I've done some changes, I have it here. My colleague on the other side decides that, okay, the changes that he or she is having, it's okay that everyone should see it and it should be part of the main project. Because at the end of the day, you want to share one version to maybe it was your manager that requested for this development or whatever you're doing. So my colleague decides that, okay, it's time for me to send it to the main branch. This process of sending to the main branch, normally it depends on the rules of the game, it depends on the rules of the organization. It is possible for you to just say, I'm ready and I want my thing to be on the main branch. Then you can definitely merge your changes. So this is another keyword you need to know: merge. So merging is like taking changes in a branch and submitting it in another branch. In this our scenario is submitting changes from branch Y into the main branch. So that process of taking changes into merging changes from one branch with another, it's called merging. But if you're working in an organization, the standard is you cannot just take your changes. If you feel good about what you have done and you want to merge the main branch, you cannot just do it like that. You have to do what is called, you create a pull request. Yeah. Or technically, I don't know why they call it pull request, but it's a merge request, right? So the pull request means now you have these changes and you want to submit it to the main branch. And for you to be able to do that request, you will need someone to review. So you need someone to review the code and agree that yes, your code is of standard that we should merge into the main branch. And you cannot assign it. So for you to do the review, you need to assign to someone. So let's continue with our scenario. So my colleague Y has done the changes. He or she wants to do a pull request. So he or she would definitely request me to review it and obviously assign it to me. When I review it, so normally what is going to happen is that I'm going to receive a notification, or when I go online, they will tell me, obviously GitHub has this way of notifying you. Maybe if you've accepted via email, they will tell you that this guy, your colleague, has requested you to review something. You now have to go online. You now go online on the GitHub platform. You can do it locally as well, but I'm going to show you online, where you go online and you see that someone has assigned some changes to you. They will definitely show you everything, that what was the version before and the version after. So you obviously you see, take note, you see the version 1 and the version 2. You see the changes that has been made. If you think that the changes are worth being in the main branch, then you accept the pull request. Or you can decide to say no, or maybe you need to upgrade certain things. So you can actually write comments and say, document, I need you to do these changes. It's preferable like this. But if you feel like everything is okay, then you can accept the pull request. And when you accept the pull request, then your colleague can now merge his or her changes to the main branch. Now, so on our main branch, now at this point in time, we have changes from colleague Y, right? So I was using this. So this is what our main branch is currently having at this stage. So I can decide at this stage, I'm still working. Now maybe my colleague, he or she, is done. I can decide at this stage that while I'm working, I also need to see what is happening online, and I need to see locally. I can decide to do a pull request. So at this stage, I can pull the main branch. So when I pull, so all the changes I find online, I can bring them to my local machine. So the process of taking updates from the GitHub platform to your local machine is a pull, while the process of taking it from your local machine to the GitHub platform is the pull, right? So that is some of the keywords you need to understand. Now, so certainly at the end of the day, maybe after day 2, I'm also good and I want to merge. I want to put my changes to everyone. So definitely I will also create a pull request. So I'm going to create a pull request, and obviously I'm going to assign it to my colleague. So assign to my colleague, and my colleague, if everything is okay, we now accept the changes. So basically, this is how Git and GitHub functions. They work when you create a repository, it works in terms of branches, and then when you create by default, it has a main branch, and you guys can branch off based on based on the agreement you guys have. Some people will not call it main branch, they will call it production branch, whatever they call it. Just know that, okay, that final branch is a branch that at the end of the day we should have a final code. So at the end of the day, we are going to have a document now with changes from my other colleague and changes from me. So that is what Git and GitHub does. So this is what really happens live online, and you need to understand that these guys, for this to happen, the GitHub platform manages what happens in the cloud, and you guys have to manage what happens locally. And for that to happen, you need to have Git installed. So Git is a version control system that helps you to make versions of your documents. So for some reason, if we decide that, oh, this final version that we have here is not ideal, we can decide to reverse back to a version back, let's say you can go back retrospectively and get a version. So basically that is what you need to know about Git and GitHub. I know maybe it's a little bit complicated, but one of the things all the key concepts you need to know, the keywords, I think I've mentioned repository, which is just like the bucket that holds everything. Then I mentioned, maybe when you create a repository online, before you have the repository on your local laptop, you have to clone. So clone is a process where you take a repository online. So you take this repository online and you bring it local. So you clone a repository local to your machine. Then branches. Normally you work in branches. Okay, this is your I don't know I can call it, but it's going to be your own version. Like each and everyone has their own version. You can do that. So you need to understand branches. You also need to understand that if you're working local, when you're working local, you have some changes. You need to, first of all, you commit the changes. So when you commit, it's like saving the changes. It just creates a version. It creates a version of it. If you don't commit changes, then you're not saving it. You're just saving it on your laptop. It's not creating versions. But you need to create versions. It's very important that you commit. So always commit. Always commit often. Okay, don't wait to run all your codes or to have all your changes that you commit. No, the nice thing about GitHub is that you want to have small chunks of commit, so that if there's something wrong, you can just reverse back in time and go to a very specific point. So this is something it is good to do it very, very often. Then when you're ready, take note, when you commit, those changes are still on your local laptop. Your team members are not able to see what is happening on your local laptop. But if you decide that yes, it is ready for them to see, which is always good, then you now do a push. So you push your changes to the cloud. So when you push, it goes now to your branch. If you had a branch, it will go to your branch, right? So you go to your you call it remote branch. So maybe that's something I did not mention as well. So the branches in the cloud, so maybe I go back, these branches in the cloud, this and this, these are the remote branches, and the ones local branch, these other branches, these are the local branches. So it is not automatic that the remote branches and the local branches will always have the same state of the document. What you need to do is always say, I want to pull. So if you need to know what your colleague is doing, then you need to pull. So pull means you are taking from the remote to the local. Maybe your colleague has done some changes. You want to know what is happening. Rather than calling him and say, hi, what is happening? I need to know what you're doing. If you guys agree that anytime you do a change, at the end of the day, you push it to the cloud, then the next morning I want to see what my colleague is doing, I will pull it down. So it is like taking the changes from the remote and you're sending to the local branch. What else? I hope I've mentioned the most important things. Okay. Maybe I also talk. So the pull request is when you want to have something on another branch. Let's say you had the let's say branch X, which is what I was working on, and I want to send it to the main branch. So for me to do that, that is the pull request. And most of the time, if you're working in a team, You need someone to review the code. So you need someone to review. You need to assign to someone. And when they are okay, when someone reviews and agrees that everything is good, then you can now do the merge. So you actually merge when ideally when someone has actually confirmed that your code is good enough for the main branch. So guys, that is basically it that you need to know. This is not all about Git and GitHub. There are a lot of things you need to know about Git and GitHub. But my goal for this session was just to give you a good picture of why Git and GitHub is important, when you should use it, how we should use it, and yeah, you can do other stuff. Now, for the other part about building your technical project, I think I mentioned that one of the things. So we have covered the concepts already. Take note, there's other things you need to know about Git and GitHub. I might search for resources and I share with you in the video bio. Next is building a technical portfolio. So if you're doing this, normally if you're working on a project and you're doing this already, then you're already building your technical portfolio. Let's say you decide to work on a project. So you have created your account, so you're here. Now you're just alone. If there's another thing again is in my recent article, I explained that you can decide to work on a project solo or independently, or you can do it in a team. So if this was an example of a team, technically you guys already have a repository online that if you say on your CV, I know how to use Git and GitHub, or I know how to use Python, guys, anyone can go online and check out these things. Take note, your repository can be private or local. Maybe I did not mention that. Repository can be private. So most companies, if you are working on something company level, right, you don't expect anyone to just go on GitHub and see your code. So it can be private or it can be public. So for you that you're hoping to build a portfolio, then I expect you to create public repositories where someone can go online, check your GitHub profile, and they are able to see these things there. They're able to see your code. Now, so technically, if you're actually doing this, you obviously already create your technical portfolio. And another thing too is you can use this to really document your code, right? So there is a whole section to document on GitHub. So normally when you create a repository, there is a file called readme. Okay, at least I don't know, readme.md, something like that. In this readme.md, when someone opens your repository, they're able to see something, they're able to read. So it is very important that you make use of this part of your of this document where you actually document everything about the project. It wouldn't make sense for you to just create a repository and when someone lands on your repository, they don't even know where to start. What is this project talking about? You need to really document. So use the README to really document your project, really document. In the article that I just recently released, I also provided a template where how to document technical projects. And it's not just when you're documenting technical projects, if you're fresh out of school, don't get into thinking that you're writing a thesis or you're doing a school project. Now you're moving into the real world, into the industry, so there are certain standards. You want that when someone lands on your profile, on your repository, they should see some level of standards that, oh, this person can really document at this level. Then it means, okay, I'm comfortable hiring this person because he or she already knows certain things that we are doing in our company. So it's very good that you use standard way of documenting. And I provided, for those that are interested, you can obviously request for this document and I'll provide it to you. So how to document. So in this README file, even though you need to, it's just like you can use a normal Word document, and even online you can edit this file. So use the README file to really document your project. Yeah, so those are the things. So you need to know you can create as many projects as you want online, but I would really say if you're fresh, you have never worked before, really do at least, it must be at least 3 good projects, 3 good standard projects. So these projects can really test your skills. If you really want to become a data analyst, so maybe you should be looking at an SQL or Power BI. Now the thing about Power BI is you're not really writing code, so what you might want to share online can be like screenshots of your project, what you actually did, like the dashboard and everything. You can do everything in this README file. I'm going to show you examples of what I've done before. So you should really use this technology to really create your technical portfolio. And at the end of the day, I would suggest that on your CV you have a link. So on your CV, if you don't have if you don't have experience, so in the experience section of your CV, why not talk about your projects that you've done? At the end of the day, what do you think these guys are looking for when they say they need experience? They just want to see that you have actually used those skills before in a certain way, maybe in a company or somewhere. They just want to confirm that you have done it. That's the whole goal about experiences. So if you're able to show that you have done projects that shows that you know how to use SQL, you know how to use Power BI, you know how to use Python. Guys, I'm not saying that these are the skills that you must know. I'm just giving examples. By doing projects, then I think it's sufficient. Rather than faking it, put their projects. And the thing about your CV, you're limited. So you can write the things that you have done, but you put a link that goes to your repository. The good thing about the repository is you're not limited. No one is going to tell you we need 1,000 words or 2,000 words, even though you need to keep it, your README file, to be short and concise. But no one is limiting you. So you can list the things you can do on your CV, very brief, but you put the link to the repository where someone can go online and see the codes. So that's the nice thing about having this Git and GitHub technology. Okay, I think we have covered quite a lot, and the next thing I want us to do is to actually sort of explain how to build a technical portfolio. The key is we're using the README file, and obviously you have to push all your codes there, right? Push all your codes so that someone can go in and actually see it. Now I will go live and show you how to do this in real life by using the Git on your laptop.